I am not teaching, I am publicly learning. But hi and welcome to Learning for the Life in UK test part 311. The electoral learning for the Life in UK test part 311. The electoral register that is on the page 120 while doing morning stretching, and if you participate in the morning stretching, let's set your on risk. In the last part we were talking about voting right, and it was written that basically everyone can vote over the age of 18 in the United Kingdom. But there are some exceptions. And I mentioned a couple of times that it might be people with diagnosed mental disabilities or mental disorders. And then I hinted with the second part of the sentence, if it is said that these mental disabilities or disorders make it impossible for them to vote. And that is because almost everyone keeps their right to vote if a mental disability is diagnosed. So I don't want to discourage anyone to get help. There are only very few, very specific cases where people lose their voting right. Almost everyone keeps their voting right. And I don't even know if it's the case in the United Kingdom. And other thing that I thought of, I heard once that the monarch is not allowed to drive. And in a way, imagine if a monarch would get voted as the prime minister, which could happen. I'm sure if a monarch would say vote for me at the next elections, that the monarch would get many, many, many votes. It could be that it is prevented, that the law says the monarch cannot be at the same time a prime minister. So it can be that the monarch, for example, cannot vote. So it can be some exceptions like that also. It would be easier if there's something written, but I want to make clear, people should not be afraid to seek help for mental disabilities or disorders. Almost no one loses their right to vote just because they have a diagnosed mental disability or disorder. And if you're able to ask yourself this question, you're probably intelligent enough that you're not at risk to lose your voting right, if it's even the case in the United Kingdom. Now, the electoral register. To be able to vote in a parliamentary or local election, you must have your name on the electoral register. So to be able to vote, so if the population wants to vote, in the parliamentary or also in the local elections, then you must have your name on the electoral register. If you are eligible to vote, so basically everyone over the age of 18, which is a UK citizen or a naturalized adult citizen, if you are eligible to vote, you can register by contacting your local council electoral register office. So you can contact your local council electoral registration office. This is usually based on your local council. In Scotland, it may be based elsewhere. If you don't know which local authority you come under, you can find out by visiting www.aboutmyvote.co.uk and entering your postcode. Now you just have to find out what postcode you have. You can also download voter registration forms in English, Welsh and some other languages. The electoral register is updated every year in September or October. An electoral registration form is sent to every household, and this has to be completed and returned with the names of everyone who is resident in the household and eligible to vote. That is oversimplified, again an asterisk. Okay. Now let's get to it. In Northern Ireland, a different system operates. This is called individual registration, and all those entitled to vote must complete their own registration form. Once registered, people stay on the register provided that personal details do not change. For some information, see the Electoral Office for Northern Ireland website at www.eoni.org.uk. By law, each local authority has to make its electoral register available for anyone to look at. All of this has to be supervised. The register is kept at each local electoral registration office or council office in England and Wales. It is also possible to see the register at some public buildings such as libraries. Otherwise, notice that we're going to do now morning stretching, and we will come back in the 3 minutes. I sign with her exercise we're doing in the corner. And out. And again. Okay. Again in. Out. And the last round. Out. Again in. Out. Breathe in, close the legs. And out. Next exercise. The legs are standing a bit more than shoulder wide apart. We're breathing in and lifting the arms up. Breathing out, we're going to one side. Breathing in and out the rib cage. And out. Again in. Out back into the middle. Breathing in. And out over to the other side. Breathing in out rib cage. And out. Again in. Out back into the middle. And the arms down. Next exercise, we're breathing in. And out, one hand slides down the leg, the other shoulder stays down. Breathe again in. And out, take one arm over. And breathe again in and rib cage. And out. And again in. And out, back into the middle. Breathe again in. And out, one hand slides down the leg, and the upper shoulder stays down. Breathe again in. And out, take one arm over. Breathe in and open rib cage. And out. And again in. And out, back into the middle. Now, we are now vertical yoga. Feet are standing together. We're breathing in and lifting the arms up. And breathing out and one hand comes down. And breathe in and reach to both hands. And out. Again in. And out, one hand down. Breathe in and reach. And another round, breathe in. Out, one hand down. Breathe in and reach. And out. Back in. And out. Breathe in and reach. Now let's look what was written. So, people over the age of 18 and who are citizens must register in the electoral register. And you can contact your local council electoral registration office, which is usually based on your local council. And you can do it. Or otherwise you can also visit www.aboutmyvote.co.uk, and there when you enter your postcode and then you find out which council you are in. And you can also download voter registration forms in English, Welsh and some other languages. So you can find out at www.aboutmyvote.co.uk which local council you're in, know what your postcode is. And then you can find out what your local council is. And then you can contact the local council electoral registration office where you can register and then you can vote if you're eligible. And the electoral register is updated every year in September or October. An electoral registration form sent to every household. And this has to be completed and returned with the names of everyone who is a resident in the household and eligible to vote. So are both systems working? Do you have to register or are you getting paused? In September, October, the people seem to get a letter, and then they have to write everyone down who lives there and can vote. In Northern Ireland, a different system operates. This is called individual registration, and all those entitled to vote must complete their own registration form. Once registered, people stay on this register provided the personal details do not change. For more information, see the Electoral Office for Northern Ireland website at www.eoni.org.uk. So you can visit www.eoni.org.uk for Northern Ireland for more information, and you can at some place register, and as long as you don't have changing personal details, you keep registered to vote. And by law, each local authority has to make its electoral register available for anyone to look at. Although this has to be supervised. So it seems to be that anyone can look at any name, not just at their own, but at any name, under supervision if someone is standing next to them, what they are doing there. And the register is kept at each local electoral registration office or council office in England and Wales. So you can go to your local council electoral registration office. Where it is, you can find maybe at www.aboutmyvote.co.uk, and then under supervision you can look at everyone registered in the registration book. It is also possible to see the register at some public buildings such as library. You can also try it in a library. So we're going to now do the rest of the morning searching. If you're just here to where to vote, you better go to one official website or something like that, but we're going to read it in a moment. So now to the morning searching to the rest. Otherwise you can go directly to the next part if you're here for where to vote. The legs are standing wide apart, we're doing it. And we're hanging down. Take out and happy to come deeper down by breathing in through the nose deep into the chest. And by breathing out through the mouth. And again in. And out. Again in. And out. Again in. And out. Again in. And out our whole leg. And breathe again in. And out. Again in. And out. Again in. And out over to the other leg. Breathe again in. And out. Again in. And out. And again in. And out into the middle. Breathe again in. And out, we're closing our legs. And we're still keeping down here. And we're just having to come deeper down by breathing deep through the nose and the chest. And we're breathing out from the mouth. Again in. And out. And again in. And out. And the last time in. And out, we're coming slowly up with the jump back. Making it to the top, backwards shoulder. And the closing exercise. Legs are standing wide apart. We're breathing in and going down. And out. Again in. And out. Breathe again in. And out. Again in. And out. One last round. Breathe in. And out. Again in. Out. Breathe in and close the legs. And out. But bit of the morning stretching. Thank you very much, and until next time.